Hello and welcome to another video in where I show you everything you need to know about compressor pedals in a metal context. As an example, I use the Thorn Sound Labs Steam. Before we start the actual video, a little disclaimer here. This video is featured both by Thomann and by Thorn Sound Labs because they provided me with this pedal to do basically the demo that I will do, and afterwards I have to send it back. However, each and every word is my own and my opinion is not influenced in any way. Thorn Sound Labs is a rather young company because it was founded in 2021 and it's located in Nashville, USA. They understand themselves as a manufacturer of premium guitar pedals, so therefore each and every one of their pedals is special. They have a variety of different effects. So far they have 9 different guitar pedals. Apart from the Steam, which is a compressor, they also have a tremolo and all kinds of boosts and drives, fuzzes, distortions, and even some pedals for bass guitar. If you want to learn more about the company, check the link in the description below. So, what actually is a compressor? Well, a compressor is a tool box that compresses your signal. That means it lessens the dynamic. A compressor takes the very loud peaks of your signal and brings them down a couple of dB. So it compresses the whole signal and makes it more compact. Lots of guys claim that a compressor actually makes quiet signals louder, but that's not the case. In fact, it works quite the opposite. The compressor brings loud peaks down in volume, but then most of us will compensate by cranking the output. And therefore, of course, we bring the original loud levels back to their original peak, and then the quiet signal goes up as well. Therefore, it seems that a compressor makes the quiet stuff louder, but it's not the case. There are lots of different types of compressors, for instance, tube compressors, VCR, optical, and so on. But to be honest, for us as guitarists, it doesn't even matter because almost every compressor for guitar is the same. And the other ones, they just differ in the way they are built and of course how they sound. But again, for us guitar players, we basically have one style. So now let me explain to you how a compressor actually works, and we're using the Steam because it has all the controls that we basically need. Let's start with the threshold. The threshold sets the line for when the signal is actually affected by the compressor. So do you want to have just the peaks to be affected, or do you want to have basically the whole signal? That's what threshold will do. Amount, or ratio as it's most commonly called, sets how much of compression is going to happen. So it basically sets how much compression is applied. Will it just squeeze the signal a tiny little bit, or will it bring back the, basically when you have a huge peak, totally down? Attack lets you decide how fast the compressor will react. So if you have a very short attack, the compression will take part almost instantly, but when you add a slow attack, the initial transients will cut through without being compressed in any way, and afterwards the compression will take place. With release, it's kind of the same. It says how fast will the compression basically stop. And very fast compression, that means the compression will quickly stop, and when you have a very long release time, the compression will be still active when the signal is out of the original threshold level. Those two knobs, attack and release, can rarely be found on typical guitar pedals, and that's a special feature on the Steam. However, we do have a little switch where we can select between auto and manual. When we have it in manual mode, attack and release are actually working, and when we have it in auto, the pedal has an auto release and an auto attack. The output, well, basically determines the output volume. So when you do lots of compression, your signal becomes really quiet and you have to compensate by cranking the output. Detail is a special feature only found on the Steam. It's not a typical control on a compressor. It is used to recover the treble content that may have gotten attenuated in the compression. Again, this is rarely be found in compressors. I haven't actually seen it, I just found it on the Steam. So some compressors do have more options, but threshold, ratio or amount, attack, release and output, basically everything you really need to know. And now let me show you the Steam in action. And first of all, we're going for a typical sound where you would use a compressor pedal. And to my knowledge, this is for clean sounds. And well, I opted for my Fender Stratocaster with single coils. I opted for the bridge and middle pickup. And from there we go into the Steam, and then we go into my PRS MT15 in the clean channel, and then into an IR. That's it. Well, we do two different approaches. First of all, some kind of funk. Well, I'm not the most famous funk player there is, but you will get the idea. And then we'll do a typical clean ballad stuff. First of all, let me show you the clean sound without the Steam engaged. Okay, and now with this chord, let's try the compressor. I think you can hear the difference. Sounds way crisper and more consistent. Let's actually play around with it a bit more. And now for something different. Let's opt for the neck and middle pickup and play just some arpeggiated stuff. So even with the detail turned way down, it still sounds brighter and, well, more exciting if you want. Let's opt for some manual attack and release times. So after the clean guitar, of course, we have to do another test with a distorted sound. The signal chain is basically the same. I just switched guitars to my Black Cat custom DC7 and I switched channels on the MT15. It's now in the red channel. And this is the sound. Yeah, pretty standard metal sound. Okay, when you use a compressor in front of a distorted sound or with a distorted amp, you have to be aware of some things. First of all, since a compressor compresses, it highly depends on the pickups that you use in your guitar. For instance, the EMG pickups are already compressing quite a bit. So if you use already compressing pickups into a compressor, the results are widely different than when you use passive pickups like the Bernacles that don't compress as much. I personally wouldn't use a compressor with EMGs, but of course that's up to taste. Another thing, technically you could use the compressor pedal in the FX loop, but I highly advise you not to do, because if we do lots of compression, we shrink the signal down, as I've explained earlier. So we have to compensate with the output. But when we don't compress, so when we have a fast release time or we have a quite slow attack, there are times when we don't compress and then the full signal comes through and you get heavy volume spikes that aren't musical in any way. So don't use a compressor in the FX loop. With that being said, let's find out how this thing alters my guitar tone. So as you can see, there are really two kinds of situations where I would use a compressor. First of all, for the rhythm guitars, in typical I wouldn't use a compressor. However, you get some cool results when you set, well, basically just auto attack, auto release, and set the threshold particularly high, not so much amount of gain reduction, but then use the output as some kind of boost. This works nicely. And especially with the detail knob on the stem, you can always dial in some more highs, or you can tame the sound to your liking. This is a really cool feature. And yeah, you get some usable rhythm sound. However, my typical approach would be for a lead guitar sound, and here I would set the settings basically to the extreme. This means attack to taste, to be honest, long release, high amounts of gain reduction, and really low threshold, and lots of volume compensation. And here you could hear that the sustain highly increases. And this is especially cool if you play lead lines with long sustaining notes. You get just more out of it. Again, the detail knob is so useful because you can further tweak the sound to your liking. Do you want it a bit more aggressive? Do you want it a bit more rounded off? That's everything you can do with the stem. And there you have it. This is my kind of tutorial to compressor pedals, and also my review to the Thorn Sound Labs Steam compressor. Nice thing. I'm kind of sad I have to send it back, but well, that's how it goes. Again, thank you Thomann for sponsoring this video, and if you wanna purchase anything I've used in this video, I've put together a list of all the stuff I used that is available at Thomann down below in the description. And of course, let me know, what do you think about compressor pedals in general and in metal? Comment. And if you want to support this channel, well, you might consider becoming a YouTube member. And with this being said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. May the power protect you, and have a nice day.